Okay, should we make a start?
Yeah, great. Thanks, David.
Welcome to everybody. If you're on this webinar call, hopefully it's because you're interested in the Center for Anthropology and Mental Health Research in Action and its program of doctoral scholarships. That's to say, 3-year, fully funded with scholarships, fees, and stipend for full-time PhD research on a subject related to mental health, adopting an anthropological perspective and method. So welcome to this webinar. I'm David Moss, and I'm director of the Center for Anthropology and Mental Health Research in Action, and I'm joined here by my colleague John and two of our current or recent PhD researchers who will introduce themselves. So let's do the introductions first.
Thanks, David. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining from around the world. I'm John Lowenthal. I am the Education and Training Officer for CAMHRA.
Hi, I'm Chiara Vikramasinghe. I recently completed a PhD in anthropology at SOAS, kind of the first PhD to come out of CAMHRA, because it was just as CAMHRA was launching, and I'm currently a postdoctoral research fellow at CAMHRA.
Hi, I'm Milena Worth. I'm currently a second-year PhD student, and I started just before CAMHRA began, yeah, I'm excited that it kind of has grown up since I began.
Oh, and we're also joined by Shafir Laziko, who's our CAMHRA coordinator, and so Shafir will be helping out with the Q&A towards the end.
We hope that we'll leave much time for Q&A, because that's probably the most valuable part of a webinar. But just to give you some background to the Center for Anthropology and Mental Health Research in Action, CAMHRA. CAMHRA is a centre funded by Research England. We were awarded a 5-year grant to establish a sustainable centre for anthropology and mental health research, the first of its kind, we think, in the world, that brings an anthropological perspective on mental health. Mental health, a field which has been quite dominated by the sciences, by neuroscience, by medical sciences, by medical and biomedical perspectives, even humanities and social sciences, but within which there's been very little opportunity for a focus on anthropology. And yet, from our work with collaborators and colleagues in NHS trusts, with global mental health partners, we've come to realize the value that is placed on the distinctive anthropological approach, anthropological theory, anthropological methods, and ethnographic practice to mental health research. Mental health research, that's to say, focused on the experience of mental distress, on the various kinds of responses to that distress, the social, environmental, political context that are part of the structural conditions that produce experiences of distress, and the various and varied therapeutic responses to distress, including the organizational dimensions of institutions, government, organizations that respond to mental health challenges at a variety of different levels in different societies and different countries and cultures. So we have a range of anthropological contributions that we've contributed to in CAMHRA, and a range of ongoing collaborative pieces of work with our partners who include NHS trusts in the UK mental health, public mental health organizations and bodies, as I said, global mental health partners. And we have an ongoing cohort of PhD researchers. We have postdoctoral researchers such as CAMHRA, who'll speak in shortly. And we have a number of ongoing projects run by the anthropologists who at the center of CAMHRA. And actually, I think you showed a slide. These are our colleagues. The center is co-directed by Dr. Nikita Simpson. And these are some of our other colleagues whose profiles you can look up and see the range of fields of inquiry within the broad area of anthropology and mental health research that we cover. And it is broad and international. Although we are funded by Research England and we have a mandate to work locally as we do in London, looking at inequality in particular of access and experience and outcomes of mental health, we actually are very international in our remit. And we have researchers doing projects in India, in Japan, in the US, in Australia, a wide range of different countries and looking at different issues. We might cite some of these or refer to some of these later on in the webinar. That's probably enough by way of broad background for me. Perhaps just to say that the CAMHRA Centre has a number of streams of work: research partnerships, collaboration with mental health organizations and institutions being one stream, education and training, including our masters in medical anthropology and mental health, being another stream, within which, of course, we have the PhD research program, and policy and public engagement work, which is a third important strand of our centre, which has been running now for just 1 year. So we're still in the early stages, the infancy of our existence. But the core PhD researchers and bringing in new cohorts of researchers, funding innovative work and doctoral research in this field is really at the center of what CAMHRA is set up to do. So, John, shall I kind of hand over to you to pick up the baton and say something more specifically about the doctoral scholarship program?
Thank you very much, David. Yeah, happily. So, yes, well, thank you all again for joining the webinar and for what would appear to be your interest in this year's doctoral scholarship scheme. This is the second year that we're running this initiative. As David inferred, we have 5 CAMHRA PhD scholars at present who began in September doing projects in Brazil, India, the UK, Japan, France. CAMHRA as a research centre is very lucky to be able to have this opportunity to fund people to do some research. And, you know, for those of you who apply and who get the scholarship, it's an amazing opportunity to spend several years or 3 years of full-time study, really committing yourself to a topic of personal, political, academic curiosity and concern. And the anthropology of mental health is at the cutting edge of what's relevant in today's world. So we're delighted, and the academic staff are delighted to be able to supervise your projects, bringing your enthusiasm and your inquiries with you. We have 5 scholarships available starting in September 2026-27. These would be full-time. It would be in person. In the second year of study, you would be able to conduct field work, usually for at least 12 months, in whatever part of the world you're conducting your research. We have available 2 scholarships for students who will be paying hypothetically overseas fees, 3 scholarships available for students who would be paying home fees. The scholarship covers those fees. We also offer a living stipend that's stated here. That's an annual living stipend of £22,780 per year. There can be further applications to provide some extra support to do your field work, but otherwise this is the offer. All of this information is available on the webpage. If you just type in CAMHRA Doctoral Scholarships. I'll just speak a bit more about what it would entail to apply. So it's important to emphasize that you'll be applying to the PhD program in Anthropology and Sociology at SOAS. And you'd be a member of the Department of Anthropology and Sociology, which is an amazing place to be. I studied anthropology at BA, MA and PhD level, and I joined CAMHRA a year ago, and I feel like I've made it. I'm in the SOAS Department of Anthropology and Sociology. It's an amazing place to be, with colleagues doing research projects all over the world. You just bump into somebody, a student doing studying something that interests them, whatever it may be. So it's a great place to be. We have a vibrant academic culture. We have a weekly departmental seminar series. In half an hour, there's a talk from someone coming from the University of Edinburgh. Last week, we had somebody who came from the University of Cambridge. So there's plenty of academic stimulation and community, whether amongst the cohort, and Milena and Chiara will speak about being part of a PhD cohort. And then there's also a community of academic researchers who you can speak with informally, but also collaborate with and learn from through your supervisory relationships. Given this kind of intersection of the anthropology and mental health, there is a specialist doctoral training that you will receive. We currently have a kind of a cluster within the kind of MPhil/PhD. So students begin as an MPhil student and you kind of transfer over to PhD candidature as part of your degree. Within your first year, you'll be part of a weekly training seminar that will prepare you to work with the vulnerability of others or your own vulnerability to engage in clinical ethnography. This training draws on our own academic research expertise and a partnership that we've been developing with the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust. So yeah, you'll hit the ground running and hopefully benefit from plenty of academic input and pastoral input for how to take care of yourself in the process of conducting research on what may often be a sensitive topic. CAMHRA is novel in that, as in the name, it's a Centre for Anthropology and Mental Health Research in Action. And so some of my colleagues spend a lot of time developing partnerships with NHS trusts, with mental health charities, speaking with people engaged in mental health activism. And you'd be encouraged as part of your research project to, engage with partners, engage with communities who have different forms of lived experience. That can be in the UK and globally. And do have a think in your application of how you could demonstrate that kind of awareness. How could I make this research meaningful? How could I meaningfully engage others through different partnerships in my research? And how could even my research have some kind of impact further to the academic inquiry? So yeah, do have a look. We have a web page which demonstrates some of our different research projects and different partnership work. As mentioned, you'll be joining the much broader Department of Anthropology and Sociology and this growing, vibrant Centre for Anthropology and Mental Health Research and Action, which is within the department. Okay, so I suppose just for transparency, there will be quite a few people applying, we expect, and so there is some eligibility to share. We would expect applicants to have either a BA or an MA in anthropology to have that kind of necessary theoretical methodological grounding in anthropology and ethnography. We would expect students to have a grade of 65% or higher in their dissertation grade for a master's. If you are attending this seminar and this webinar and you're interested in CAMHRA, you want to get involved, but you don't have a prior degree in anthropology, do kind of keep following, do kind of consider other ways of getting involved. We will run CAMHRA Master's scholarships for 3 further years. That could fund the MA Medical Anthropology and Mental Health that David mentioned. It could also fund an MRes in Social Anthropology. A Master's of Research is often considered groundwork for a PhD, and you could do an MRes in Social Anthropology with a mental health focused topic. That next round of scholarship applications will open in February, probably close around May of this coming 2026. So yeah, don't be too put off if you don't have an official anthropology background. There could be other routes to getting involved. In certain exceptional cases, if you have engaged in anthropology in various ways and you do have relevant work experience, you could be considered eligible. But we also want to just share that we do hope for some significant anthropology background from those who are applying. Okay. It is common practice for applicants to a PhD programme to get in touch with prospective supervisors, and you would certainly be encouraged to look at the research profiles of the academic staff affiliated to CAMHRA at SOAS. Given the high volume of applications we are expecting, it's not a requirement on this occasion to have a supervisor's approval. And so you are welcome to get in touch with prospective supervisors. Please do not be hurt if you do not hear back from them. It's a busy time of year. It does not have any bearing on the quality of your application or the likelihood of you being considered. So certainly have a look at the research profiles and read the research of who could become your supervisors. You may wish to reach out. It's not a requirement, and don't worry if you don't hear back. I'm just going to read through, this is all on the web page, but so you go through the portal to actually apply for a PhD. It's not a PhD at CAMHRA, it's a PhD at SOAS. In the degree is an MPhil/PhD in Anthropology and Sociology. And here's what's required. There's a formal application form. There's a personal statement. Please, in your personal statement, state your wish to be considered eligible for the CAMHRA scholarship. You also need to submit an up-to-date academic CV. There's a research proposal. I will mention something more on that in a moment. I'll also ask David to elaborate in a moment. Full academic transcripts, degree certificates. Now, there's a question of English language evidence if relevant. This is all elaborated in the SOAS Doctoral School English language requirements page. We also would ask for an academic reference letter. So this is not just the name of an academic referee, but an actual letter in support of your application. And this should be from someone who is familiar with your academic performance and your research skills. So ideally somebody who may have supervised your master's dissertation research. That would be ideal. Okay, I'm almost done with this. I'm just going to kind of show you this is the kind of bare bones of what's necessary. So the 5th of January, that's the deadline. There's only one application. You apply to the department, you'd apply to the degree by, I think it's noon UK time on the 5th of January. You're welcome to apply before. That's an application to the degree within the department that will be reviewed by the department. From those, and as said, please do mention in your personal statement that you would like to be considered for the CAMHRA scholarship. From those students who are accepted onto the degree programme, another panel will assess those students who have been offered a place and come up with a short list to interview students for a CAMHRA scholarship. You should hear by early March 2026 if you have been invited for an interview. Students should hear sometime in February if they have been accepted or not to the degree programme. And so you'd hear in March whether or not you would be invited to an online interview, and from there 5 places will be offered for the full scholarship. Okay, I'm going to soon pass over to David, and then I'll bring in Chiara and Milena. I'll just reiterate, so what are we looking for? Well, a focus on mental health that can be understood in many different ways. That's one of the wonders of anthropology. We understand the plurality of life and how the interconnectedness and the holism and the significance of context. And so mental health might come up in some different ways and different contexts. And so yeah, you can bring in some innovative thinking for how your research project could try to understand mental health. A PhD has to, a PhD in essence is an original piece of research. And so you must engage with other research literature. It's a 2,000 word research proposal, so there's not a tremendous amount of space, but you should be engaging with current cutting edge literature and some theory. So what are you proposing to do that might offer something novel? There has to be feasibility. It's great to be ambitious, big ideas, but where will you as a person be located in the course of your research? bearing in mind this is ethnographic research. So how have you shown in your application that you have a good grasp of what that actually means, what opportunities, but also issues might arise through employing ethnographic methods, which really fundamentally involve yourself in the research inquiry. We encourage research projects that engage different forms of lived experience. That can be lived experience of mental health service use. That could draw upon your own prior history of being, as a service user or in your role in your job. You could also think of how you might engage people with different forms of lived experience in your research project, and that also entails kind of pragmatic and ethical questions. And so I'll ask David to elaborate a little bit on the next slide, and then finally, we always encourage students to apply from all kinds of backgrounds, including those from underrepresented groups. So, David, if I may ask you to elaborate, please.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, John. So what goes into a good research proposal, or a summary proposal? Well, I think one thing is that whenever you're starting out on a piece of research, you've got to ask yourself, what's the question? And you might have a broad area of interest, but you need to kind of think about how would you formulate this into a question? What if I were to summarize my interests, what would the question be? What's the question that really interests me, that drives I'm motivated to really work to find an answer to? And it could be a question that has a sub-question and a sub-question, but there should be some compelling overarching question. The next thing is that, why is it important? Why is this an important question? Why is it an original question? And that would mean establishing what we know about that topic already. So some sense of an awareness of the existing body of research and literature, including and especially anthropological and ethnographic work on the topic. It means thinking about the context from which this question arises, the nature of the social, regional, institutional. Where am I going to do this? Where does this issue come from, in terms of the broad situatedness of the issue and the question that you want to study. And then there's a question going back to this matter of feasibility, is how am I going to undertake the study? This being an anthropological piece of research, it would be grounded in ethnographic research. That's to say, research that involves long-term, relatively speaking, participant observation, situating yourself as a researcher within a set of relationships so as to understand a particular social phenomena and to address the question that you're asking. Doesn't, of course, mean that we don't also think about history. We think about archives. We think about various methodologies around participant observation, fieldwork, but that remains at the core. Although, of course, nowadays there's a whole range of different ways of doing ethnography, including using digital anthropology, and so thinking creatively about the kinds of methods and the kinds of participation that might be involved that are relevant to the research that you would be wanting to do. Detail's important here. Obviously, you can't spell out in great detail the specifics of your methods in a short proposal, but demonstrating that you've thought through how you do a piece of research. What's an appropriate set of methodologies? How will you be situated? Your positionality as a researcher. What are the likely challenges, both practical, relational, and ethical, involved in the research? And thinking carefully through the ethical position and ethical issues, bearing in mind the kind of institutional ethics clearance procedures that would be necessary. So, for example, if you're planning to do work in mental health institutions, what are the institutional requirements for clearance and ethical processing involved. And of course, we're a centre for inaction. So we want to have proposals that demonstrate how this research is likely to address a question that's important. And how would the findings of such a piece of research, or the ethnographic outputs of such a research, or maybe in the process of doing the research, how would this have an impact on addressing the issue that is at the centre of the project? So that's a quick run through, and hopefully we don't take up too much more time before we get some chance for questions and answer. But I do think we should hear from our researchers who can tell you a bit about the real life of being a researcher at SOAS in anthropology on mental health.
Thank you, David. I'll pass over to Chiara and Milena. Yeah.
Maybe we can kind of do the first bit as a dialogue.
Yes.
What's different about SOAS and about CAMHRA? Do you want to start?
I'm gonna take a minute to collect my thoughts.
Yeah,
you want to start us off?
I think for me, what's been exceptional about SOAS has been the teaching and the quality of teaching and the real investment of like teaching staff and supervisors in the anthropology department. And I know for me, I really found my voice being at SOAS and felt like, I spoke up in a room for the first time. I felt like, it's just, the teaching is really creative, critical. There's a chance to reflect. The reading lists are really kind of broad and draw on a variety of scholars, especially from the Global South as well. So for me, like being at SOAS was so different to my, the previous institutions I'd been at.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true of my experience as well. I found the seminars really engaging. I think they were run in a way that made students who maybe would have previously felt kind of silenced or excluded based on maybe not having had what they felt was a strong anthropological background, being able to draw on personal experiences as well. Not just in discussions, but also in coursework. I think that was valued and appreciated, which is also very different from my kind of more classical background. I also found the research training seminars really important places to build kind of a feeling of a cohort. So I actually did my first year, my research training year, before CAMHRA existed. But even in that setting, even though I was with people who weren't studying anything necessarily related to mental health, it felt like building that community of people who would offer just constructive criticism and also just a depth of insight from various perspectives on whatever topic you were bringing to those discussions was really important. And that whole seminar is actually set up entirely for you to be able to share your research ideas, give them voice, and build confidence, and even just expressing what it is you're interested in studying, because that is, I think, at the core of a PhD. It's really that discernment that you have to do at the beginning.
Yeah, and I guess people's experience of a PhD can differ based on the structure of that. So I know for some people, a PhD can be quite a lonely journey because it's sort of your project and it's very independent. Whereas for me, I was quite lucky to have been part of a team of researchers, of anthropologists and clinicians. And this was a team led by David, and David was an amazing supervisor to have. And really sort of got me through like the tricky bits of my PhD journey. But I just love the fact that it was quite collaborative in my case. So I still had to find my individual voice and my stance within that team. But it was great to be able to learn from other people's perspectives. Because in my cohort, I think I was the only sort of more medically inclined anthropologist. But I believe in your cohort, and certainly in now that we have CAMHRA, there's so many more medical anthropologists, which will be great for those of you who are coming into the PhD program. Maybe you can say a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Because you've had more medical anthropologists in your cohort than I
it's
have.
true, and now there are even more. I think it has just highlighted to me the importance of doing mental health research outside of echo chambers, and that's those by being at a place that values that plurality of perspectives, it really keeps you from feeling like you're just kind of chewing over the same points or that you're all coming from a similar perspective, because that really flattens creativity. But instead, any given topic, which really spans the whole range of what could be considered mental health or mental illness related, brings up new kind of angles within your own study that really, I think, help enrich whatever comes out of it. I think there are real challenges that CAMHRA is trying to take on about communicating anthropological research outside of the academy. And I think those are still ongoing conversations that you as a student can become part of by being a member of CAMHRA. And I think really those are the big questions that we're asking about what counts as evidence in mental health care. And those are things that CAMHRA is really trying to address head on, and hopefully the more students we have that are part of that conversation, perhaps also students with clinical backgrounds or lived experience backgrounds, the better prepared we can be to take this research out to the world.
Yeah, but then I guess equally the fact that we are situated within an anthropology department means that there's so much other inspiration to draw from as well. So even though my research has been on the NHS and mental health care, specifically peer work, I've sort of drawn on like concepts like very classical anthropological concepts like kinship and humor, because I've just been fortunate to be exposed to teachings around these other themes as well, which are not distinctly medical anthropology, but like have still enabled me to think creatively and think out of the box. I guess I could say something very briefly about lived experience research, because I came into my PhD program as a former service user of secondary NHS mental health services. And I'd heard sort of other people's PhD experiences being sort of isolating and people's mental health like really deteriorating. And I couldn't really believe it, but my mental health actually improved doing this PhD because I think I found a real sense of purpose, like probably for the first time in my life, in being able to be someone with lived experience, doing lived experience driven research, and being really supported in that, as again, like especially by David. But yeah, I felt really, really supported doing my PhD here. But also, like, this is not to be naive about it. Like, you do have to find a way of navigating that identity and vulnerability that comes with being someone with a history of mental illness, because it's not always that your disclosure of your identity is going to be taken very well by others. So I think my approach has very much been, well, I'm sort of open and I'm curious about people's reactions to that, and I try not to let it affect me too much. I also did tons of other stuff while I was doing my PhD, which really helped. So because I'm a musician, so I do quite a lot of that on the side. Don't work weekends if you can help it. Things like that, because I never burnt out during the many years of my PhD. Oh, that's maybe another important thing to say, is because this funding is 3 years. My funding pot was also 3 years. I was a Bloomsbury scholar. PhDs in anthropology take way longer than that, in my experience, and in the experience of like others in my cohort as well. Of course, we were in the COVID cohort, so we took a bit longer than most people. But because you're spending a year, I spent 15 months in the field. So 12 to 15 months, that's already 1 year. It takes ages to digest that material because it's really interesting material. And because we are, as anthropologists, we're like our own instrument of research, right? So it takes time to kind of grow ourselves and make sense of these relationships that we've made in the field. So I would say it's like at least 4 years. I took 5.5 years.
Could Could I, sorry to interrupt. Just I'm wondering, there's so many, I'm just curious that there are lots of questions that we're already coming up in the chat. I'm wondering whether we could say more and that Chiara and Melanie can say more, but maybe particularly responding to questions that
Yeah, if we
bring
can.
up, because I think it may be that we can tailor that, but continue the conversation, but maybe involving others who are on
Yeah,
the call.
thanks,
How would
David.
that be?
Yeah, so just
I don't want to foreshorten your conversation because it's
yeah.
fascinating, but I
Oh
think
no, just to just letting people know to just be a little bit prepared for the fact that it will take longer than 3 years.
yeah.
And now that I'm in that position of being like thinking about after the PhD as well, you think, oh yeah, great, I've got my PhD, life gets easier. It does not. I mean, I love being in academia. I'm really lucky to have the role that I do have now. But bearing in mind that early career research roles are fixed term, so you're lucky if you get like something for 1 year and then you have to like find the next thing to apply for. So just bear that in mind because you don't all an academic career is kind of a weird career, isn't it? It's not like most other careers in other industries. So just give that a bit of thought because we don't often get taught enough about how to plan for a career in academia.
That's true.
And I guess thinking about like the chapter of life you're in and like how bearing in mind the precarity because it can feel very like after your PhD you can feel like oh, I have a break now, I have a job and like things are gonna be fine and easier, but no, you're still on your toes. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you both, and thanks, David, for suggesting to get to the questions, and thank you all for your questions. You can keep writing them in. Is it okay if I just take it from the top, read them out? I'll answer it if I can, or I'll also open it up to David, Chiara, Milena. Okay, so if one was to start the PhD as an international student and then change mid-study after receiving indefinite leave to remain, is this possible? Yes, I believe you would begin with overseas fees, and that would remain the case across the course of your funded period. Which faculty are taking students for 2026? So they would have to be an academic member of staff with a permanent contract. And so there was a slide in which David shared the academic researchers who are eligible to supervise. And so there will be a recording made available after, and you can see from that slide.
John, I mean, there may be others outside of CAMHRA who have interest in mental health who are not on that slide. But
Yes.
basically, you're right. Academics, check out the SOAS anthropology website and identify who's there.
Thanks, David. And I think there's an important point there, given that anthropology is all about that kind of breadth of life. And so your supervisory team may not need to just come from the anthropology of mental health. It could be interesting to have, there's a really broad kind of range of expertise in the Department of Anthropology and Sociology. And so you could, do have a look at the whole range of academic staff in the department, and your supervisory team could be made up of academics across that range. Okay, so we have a question. I'm a gender studies student from India. In my master's and MPhil research, I used anthropological tools and sociological theory. Would this background make me eligible to apply for this program?
I'll answer that. And the answer is we look at each application in its own merits, give it its own merits. But the strong emphasis is on having an anthropological education and training, which is not the same as, although it might overlap with sociological and human geography and so on. But we really prioritize people who have a background in a degree in social or cultural anthropology and have done work with some training in ethnographic research methods. So it's not to rule out others, but just to say the priority is those really focused anthropological degrees. But a case can be made for allied disciplines, but it has to be made quite clearly.
Thank you, David. And I think David's comment there, I think, should answer the next question, which is an applicant's educational qualification the primary criterion for preliminary screening, or will all the submitted documents be considered together?
All are considered together, but it's both and. It's an educational qualification of the right kind is necessary, but it may not be sufficient because we look at everything.
Thank you. So we have going through the website and the profile of the professors, I noticed the scope of their expertise is more or less focused on the UK and some parts of Asia and Latin America. Is it also possible to apply from Africa, and to what extent will it be considered? Absolutely.
Yes, there are. And we have Africa specialists in the department. If you look at the department's website, you'll see that. And in any case, we supervise work as supervisors across a range of country disciplines, and SOAS itself is a very good place to find specialist expertise within and allied to your supervisory team in different departments of history, cultural studies, media, and religions and philosophies, and so on.
Thank you, David. And somebody said, yeah, in other words, my question is whether or not priority regions or areas of focus. So I think the question is preference given to priority regions or areas of focus? And
we don't have a geographical area of priority, no. We do have a priority focus on, you'd have to make the strong case that your research is focused on mental health and explain your understanding of mental health and how it relates to, broadly speaking, what we prioritize in CAMHRA, from which you can find out more about on our website.
And if I can just add, I think there might be, on the one hand, there's kind of contributing to the existing expertise of the academics who would supervise your research. You could make the case that, hey, I don't necessarily see so much research yet going on at CAMHRA in this field, and I would offer you a novel research project in this field. That case could also be made.
Yeah.
Somebody who had asked a question previously has elaborated and say, another question is, could you please let me know what the English language requirements are for SOAS? Is the English test required before applying, and can it be submitted after receiving an offer?
Please check on the website. I think Sophia's giving an answer there, because we don't handle that side of things. That's handled by the university.
Yeah, but I think if you would be required to submit some proof of IELTS scores, then that would have to come in with your application.
Absolutely, yeah.
So someone has asked, is the first year the only year that attendance in London is required, or should one ideally return to London after fieldwork in the second year?
Yes, you'd be expected to be in London after your fieldwork year.
Someone says, hi, does funding get extended beyond 3 years?
No, absolutely not. No scholarship funding after 3 years.
I mean, some people can find other pots of money to apply to outside of SOAS.
Oh, yeah. No CAMHRA funding.
Yeah.
But part-time job. But also the write-up, when you're after, there's an upgrade basically after your fieldwork, and once you're in the write-up stage, the fees are less.
Yeah.
So someone has asked whether this scholarship pool accepts research on suicide intervention design based on ethnographic methods. And the answer would be yes.
Yes.
The next question is, hello, thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask whether the fact that I'll be graduating in March 2026 with a master's degree in anthropology could be an issue for the application procedure. And no, I don't believe so. I think that's very good. If you're going to have a degree in hand by September 2026. So yes, I think you can still apply for January if you don't yet have the master's degree in hand, so long as you will have the master's degree completed before September 2026. Someone says, from what I understand, this is the last round of scholarships for the PhD for now. Just thought I would check. Yes, that is the case. Yeah. There will be, CAMHRA hopes to develop future opportunities, bringing in some external funding for PhD opportunities, but this current scholarship scheme with a generous amount of 5 scholarships to offer, this is the final year currently. Someone asks, will applications on the 4-year pathway, 1 year for intensive language training, be eligible for the CAMHRA remit with 1 year for self-funding?
Only if that 1 year self-funding is completed already before you join. You will be taken on for a full-time 3-year scholarship. We won't be able to fund 1 year in one program and 2 years of the PhD and leaving a 3rd year unfunded. That wouldn't fit with the model.
Okay, someone has asked, in our supporting statement, how much space should we dedicate to wanting to be considered for the CAMHRA scholarship? Is it a matter of simply mentioning it, or should we go into more detail?
Good question. I think as long as it's clearly mentioned,
Yeah,
and in other regards, the application, clearly addresses the priorities and mandate of CAMHRA, that would be sufficient.
yeah, I
Agree,
think,
John?
yeah, thanks, David. I think we are really looking at the strength of the research in terms of who's going to get the award. By all means, emphasize your willingness to engage in CAMHRA in different ways. Please do bring that in. But the kind of the case to be made is an academic one that will be focused in the research proposal. But do supplement that with yourself in the personal statement. Okay, where can one find contemporary academic material that is not behind paywalls?
Good question. Chiara, Milena, any suggestions?
I think there is, maybe relative to other disciplines, quite a bit of anthropology available open access. Yeah.
There are certain journals that have they're very much open access. Yeah.
Am I allowed to say this? That you find friends with?
I was gonna say
Find friends with the
find friends with access.
We have a really strong culture of doing that in our alumni group chats at various universities.
You
I'm
ask
not
your
sure if I'm supposed to say that, but yeah.
Ask your local public library what access you might be able to obtain. There is quite a lot on the internet as well. Academia.edu, a lot of academics upload drafts of their publications. Okay, my MA dissertation, UK University, is solid and rigorous, but due to limitations on evaluation miscommunication, I don't meet 65% in the dissertation mark, while all my grades throughout my MRA are straight distinctions. My PhD proposal is also strong. Should I consider applying, or is it not worth the effort given that it's highly competitive?
If it is highly competitive, but if assuming this master's is in anthropology, social or cultural, and there's a really strong proposal in other regards, we might take a close look at we would always take a close look at the application, but we might take a specifically close look at the context in which a dissertation had a lower mark if the rest of the transcript is exceptional.
Thanks, David. Someone has asked, are there certain templates or tips for a strong academic CV?
No. I mean, there might be, but none that we would be particularly sort of looking for. Factual accuracy and clarity is and brevity in the sense of not keeping to the facts.
And on that point, if I could please just make a comment on AI use, there can be a temptation to ask ChatGPT to kind of Hello, everybody. Apologies. We're back. Okay, well, we just got 5 minutes really, but I'll just continue going through. So does PhD at SOAS require any coursework or credits before conducting field work? Well, yes, there are some. I mean, David, I don't know whether you can speak to that.
Well, I think Milena or Chiara could speak to that briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're required to take certain kind of core modules. So one of them is the research training seminar. There's a research methods course, and as far as I know, there might still be an intro level quantitative methods course that you have to take. Those will all be done in your first year, and it'll be part of your upgrade that you've completed them. So you don't really have to worry. I mean,
They're easy.
yeah, and you can't get around them after. So
maybe not
so,
the
yeah.
statistics. I actually had to study a bit for that. But
Yeah, but they
we don't really use statistics.
They shouldn't take substantial time away from just developing your proposal as well.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm mindful of time. We have 5 minutes. So I've got a question. What if I have a particular site and topic I'm interested in, but I do not have access to the site yet? Would SOAS and CAMHRA be able to help facilitate entry into the field?
No, unfortunately. No, unfortunately, we can't facilitate the access to fieldwork. That's something that that applicants and students would need to work out for themselves. Obviously, once part of the program, we have ways of bringing our research partners in where that's relevant, NHS trusts and so on. But we wouldn't establish the basis and foundation for the research site. We would rely on applicants to do that.
Thanks, David. Someone asks if there's engagement at CAMHRA with neurodiverse populations or communities, and if there's a specialist in the centre in this area.
Strong engagement. We have specialists among our PhD cohorts. I don't know. We don't have specialist expertise. I don't think we could claim that. But we are very open, interested, and engaged. I think that would be fair to say.
Thank you, David. Someone said, I'm doing an MA where the dissertation is due in September 2026, the same time the PhD starts. Is this an issue? Is it better to wait until I have been awarded my MA to start?
If it was an exceptional application, there might be a possibility of a conditional award. It would be conditional on the outcome of the master. So it's not ruled out. We do sometimes give conditional offers.
Thanks, David. Okay, can you talk a little about time commitments, expectations around presence on campus, etc. For those of us new to the world of PhDs? Can candidates work part-time, etc.?
This is full-time work, but Chiara and Milena might briefly say something about the commitments, the time commitments, how much it takes up of your life.
Yeah, I think it's about, in the first year, it's about maybe 8 hours of contact time, but they're spread throughout the week unpredictably. So you definitely, it would be hard to carve out like a 3-day-a-week period that you could keep free from commitments. I think it's really something you have to decide. I don't think it would be impossible, but I was personally discouraged to do it just because it is difficult to do the kind of thinking that you need to both develop a proposal and to do field work and think about what you're experiencing if you have a significant other time commitment. But of course, if you're in a circumstance where that's necessary, then
I had a part-time job in the sort of the latter few years, in the write-up stage of my PhD, and it was relevant to my research, so it worked out well. Also, we have teaching, like as graduate teaching assistants, so you get a little bit. It's very poorly paid, of course, and it takes up a whole chunk of your term, but it's great. I really enjoy teaching. I recommend it, and you get a bit of pocket money
in your third year,
after your field work.
Okay, I'm mindful of. Go ahead, David.
I could just jump through a few of these very quickly. International work things, please check that out elsewhere. No deferral is possible. Our funders are very strict in terms of allocations of time within the 3 years, so we can't change that. Student mental health, yes, we have specialists interested in ongoing research in student mental health among CAMHRA researchers. That's the ones I've just read ahead to. What next?
Yeah, thanks, David. So
grade dissertation, I think we've covered that.
Yeah.
Conditional offers are a possibility if dissertation grades are not yet in.
And yes, you can have two supervisors, one being out. I mean, so can you also consider a potential supervisor from a department outside of anthropology and sociology?
Yeah, that is possible. Yes.
That's a good question.
So does the department offer any training pertaining to advanced statistics that would be necessary for a biosocial and/or mixed method research project or lab work dealing with human biomarkers at CAMHRA or wider SOAS?
There is advanced statistics available, not through our department. So yeah, John.
I think the first year that there is 801, there is some training because it's a degree, the MPhil PhD in anthropology and sociology. So there is some.
I wouldn't say it's advanced, but you can
and it's not really
make
lab work.
Contact with the person who teaches the quantitative methods courses. Well, he was very open to answering further questions at a more advanced level.
There's a question here about length of time for field work and supervision as well as communication among the cohort during the field work. Again, Milena or Chiara could talk about that. I mean, it's a fixed 3-year funding, and normally expectation was about 12 months field work, give or take.
Really varies.
Yeah, I was told to relatively firmly keep it at 12 months, but
the process of supervision and communication among the cohort during field work.
Well, I guess
not doing field work. I think everyone kind of just goes off and does the field work.
But supervision, communication with supervisors continues throughout field work. We have quite intense supervision processes here. We meet at the very beginning of your program. You'll meet fortnightly, and then progressively it might be 3 weekly, monthly. Keeping in touch with a field work. It's fairly. Would you agree?
Sorry, I misread
field
that.
work.
I read that as like,
supervision rather.
Like research seminars and peer-to-peer communication. No, lots of supervision during the field work as well.
No abandonment of
abandonment at all. I was with David in the field pretty much every day.
Yes, you can do research on Indigenous people in your home country. Someone from Chile is in the middle of a PhD in social anthropology. I imagine you can still apply for the PhD program, but often, I mean, preference might be given to those who don't already hold a PhD.
I think transferring from PhD programs in one university and country into another, expecting to pick up halfway through, is very difficult, if not impossible.
Mm-hmm. But great if you're interested in CAMHRA's work. Do follow us, follow our mailing list. There are opportunities for postdoctoral research. And yeah, so do stay involved, even if the PhD scholarship isn't the right one for you.
We do look at individual cases carefully, so we can't, maybe not giving you the most complete answers at this stage, but we've got a lot of questions to quickly try and get through.
Yeah, so preference between a master's or a bachelor's in anthropology. Great if you have a bachelor's in anthropology and a master's in something else. You're absolutely eligible to apply. Sorry, I was interrupting what you were saying, but it cut out. Well, yeah, be careful with AI use. It can be quite easy to detect when somebody has not really submitted what they have to say, but it sounded nice on ChatGPT, but it's not really what they said. So, yeah.
Interdisciplinary practitioners with an MA in anthropology of development who do not have an academic career. Well, if you have an MA in anthropology, you have an academic career of a sort. Mm-hmm. So it's all to do with the shaping and the framing of the research, PhD research.
Are co-supervisors from outside SOAS appreciated to substantiate the research proposal? I think it would be a PhD at SOAS, and if there was scope for a collaboration of sorts, that could be considered, but generally it's a PhD at SOAS.
Correct.
If one does not have a strong academic, sorry, David, are you going to say anything?
No, you read ahead, please.
If one does not have a strong academic CV, having fallen out of the system due to lived experiences from mental health, would an overall CV be acceptable? I also asked about deferral, but I don't know how that was answered. Well, you can't defer, I'm sorry, but if you have, you would have to begin in 2026 September. And well, yeah, CV would have to be academic of sorts because it's a high level academic program that you would be applying for.
We have among our strongest and most creative and brilliant academics, people who have fallen out of the system for periods of time because of lived experience around mental health. So that in itself is by no means a restriction. What it matters is the clarity and purpose and quality of the application for the research.
Okay, we're going to have to go
repeats
in a moment, but yes, someone wasn't on the call, but yes, absolutely, we do have researchers focusing on student mental health. I think we're going to have to draw the call to a close.
Reason adjustments for disability, yes. We have a statutory obligation. SOAS has a statutory obligation and makes those adjustments. And will all participants be able to take on teaching TA roles in the third year? That is a commitment that we make to create those opportunities as far as is possible. And both Chiara and Milena Milena will, and Chiara has done a lot of teaching, had a lot of teaching experience.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Yes, there are master's level scholarships available. Check out the website.
Yeah. Yes, and for 3 more years, we'll be running the master's scholarships for the MA and the MRes. So, you know, do follow us on the website and follow our mailing list.
And we can post further comments or questions to Sophia, Howard. If people have unanswered questions and they want to follow up, is there a way to do so?
I mean, the main way, please just carefully read the webpage. Many questions can be answered and there are different links. You can also write to the CAMHRA email address. You can also write to my email address. It's on the